The lawyer didn't even look up from the folder. He just said, "You're not mentioned. My father was worth $40 million, and I was his only biological child. But in that room, surrounded by my stepmother and her sons, I didn't exist. My father had died twice, once in October, and once the moment he signed that will. But he forgot one thing. My mother knew this was coming. If you've ever been in a room full of people who pretended you didn't exist, drop a yes in the comments. Because this story isn't just about money. It's about what happens when the people who are supposed to protect you decide you don't need protecting. And about the person who protected me anyway, even after she was gone. My father died on a Tuesday in October. Heart attack. Sudden. The kind of death that leaves you stunned and relieved at the same time because the waiting is finally over. I had been waiting my whole life for my father to see me. He never did. $40 million. That's what he was worth when he died. Real estate development. Shopping centers. Office parks. Luxury apartments across 3 states. I know the number because I found the account statements in his desk once when I was 15. I was looking for a pen. Instead, I found a list of every check he'd written that year. Private school tuition for Brandon, my stepbrother, $48,000. Private school tuition for Kyle, my other stepbrother, $48,000. Child support for me, 0. I put the statements back. I never told anyone. What was the point? By the time my father died, his net worth was somewhere north of $40 million. I was his only child. His only biological child, anyway. He left me nothing. Not a house, not a car, not a single dollar, not even a mention in the will. I stood at the funeral in a black dress I had bought the day before, watching my stepmother cry into a handkerchief that cost more than most people's rent. Patricia Mercer. She had been married to my father for 22 years. She had 2 sons from a previous marriage, Brandon and Kyle, who had been given everything I was denied. Private schools, luxury cars, trust funds, jobs at my father's company. I got nothing. Not because I hadn't earned it. Because Patricia had spent 2 decades convincing my father that I didn't need it. "She's so independent, Richard," she would say, her voice dripping with fake pity. "She doesn't need our help. She'll figure it out. Figure it out." That's what my father said when I asked for help with college tuition. Figure it out. That's what he said when my car broke down and I couldn't afford repairs. Figure it out. That's what he said when I called to tell him I was pregnant and scared and alone. I figured it out. I always figured it out, because I had no other choice. Patricia had been planning this funeral for months. She had probably been planning it before my father died. She stood at the front of the church in her designer dress, her freshly dyed hair, her perfect makeup. She looked like a widow from a movie. Beautiful, composed, tragic. Her voice cracked in all the right places. Her eyes filled with tears at the perfect moments. She was very good at performing feelings she didn't actually have. "My husband was the love of my life," she said. "He built an empire. He raised a family. He was generous to everyone who knew him." She didn't look at me. "Everyone who knew him," she said again. "I was his daughter." And she was pretending I didn't exist. Have you ever had someone pretend to grieve while quietly erasing you? Drop a yes if you've seen this kind of performance before. The will reading was at Patricia's lawyer's office, 3 days after the funeral. The office was in a high-rise in Stamford, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the Sound. The lawyer was a man named Gerald Crane. Expensive suit, expensive watch, expensive smile. He had been my father's attorney for 15 years. He had probably helped Patricia plan all of this. I sat on one side of the conference table. Patricia sat on the other, flanked by Brandon and Kyle. They were all holding coffee cups from a shop I couldn't afford. "Thank you all for coming," Gerald Crane said. "I'll be brief. Richard Mercer's will is straightforward." He read it aloud. "The house, the 17-acre estate in Greenwich, went to Patricia. The cars, all 7 of them, went to Patricia. The investments, worth approximately $32 million, went to Patricia. The business, Mercer Development Group, went to Brandon and Kyle jointly. And then, to my stepson, Brandon Mercer, I leave the lake house. To my stepson, Kyle Mercer, I leave the apartment in the city. To my wife, Patricia Mercer, I leave everything else." He closed the folder. "That's it," he said. "That's it?" I asked. Gerald Crane looked at me. "Yes, that's everything. I'm not mentioned." "No," he said, "you're not." The room was quiet. Patricia was studying her nails. Brandon was checking his phone. Kyle was staring out the window at the water. I had known this was coming. I had prepared myself for this moment. I had told myself that it wouldn't hurt. I was wrong. It hurt in a way I couldn't name, a deep, hollow ache that settled into my chest and stayed there. "I'm his daughter," I said. "I'm his only child." Patricia looked up, her eyes wide with practiced innocence. "Megan, you know your father loved you. Did he?" "Because he didn't put it in writing," she sighed. The long, practiced sigh of someone who has been dealing with a difficult person for far too long. Then she leaned forward slightly, her voice soft, almost kind, but with something sharp underneath. Don't be bitter, Megan. It's what Richard wanted. He always said you were the tough one who didn't need a safety net. The boys, well, they're family. They need the legacy. The boys, they're family. I felt those words land like stones in my chest. I had been his daughter for 34 years. But in her mouth, I wasn't family. I never had been. Your father had his reasons, she continued. You were always so independent. You didn't need the money the way the boys did. The boys, I repeated. They're not his children. They were his family. I stood up. I picked up my bag. I walked to the door. Megan, Patricia said, her voice sweet again. Don't leave like this. We're family. No, I said, we're not. I walked out. I didn't look back. The drive from Stamford to my apartment took an hour. I spent the first 30 minutes crying, the next 20 minutes angry, the last 10 minutes numb. I had a daughter, Chloe. She was 9 years old. She had my eyes and her father's stubbornness. Her father, my ex-husband, had left when she was 2. He said I was too focused on my career. He said I didn't need him. I had been hearing that my whole life. You don't need help. You're too independent. You'll figure it out. I was so tired of figuring it out. Chloe was at my sister's house. My mother's sister, Aunt Margaret, the only person in my family who still spoke to me. I called her from the car. How did it go? She asked. He left me nothing. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm not surprised. I'm just tired. Come over. I'll make dinner. Chloe wants to see you. I'll be there in an hour. I hung up. I sat in the car for a moment, watching the rain fall on the windshield. My father had been rich. Rich enough to change my life. Rich enough to secure my daughter's future. Rich enough to make up for all the years he had ignored me. And he had left everything to a woman who had spent 22 years erasing me. I started the car. I drove to Aunt Margaret's house. Chloe was waiting on the porch. She ran to me when I got out of the car. Mommy, Grandma Margaret made mac and cheese. I picked her up. She was getting heavy. She wouldn't let me carry her much longer. That's great, sweetheart. Are you okay? You look sad. I'm okay, baby. Just tired. She put her hand on my face. I love you, Mommy. I kissed her forehead. I love you too. Aunt Margaret was standing in the doorway watching. She was 62 years old, with gray hair and kind eyes and a face that had seen too much sorrow. She was my mother's younger sister. She had been my mother's best friend. She knew everything. The will, the funeral, the years of being overlooked. Come inside, she said. I made tea. We sat in her kitchen while Chloe watched cartoons in the living room. The rain tapped against the windows. The tea was hot and sweet. I knew your father wouldn't leave you anything, Aunt Margaret said. Patricia made sure of that. How do you know? Because your mother told me. Before she died, she said Patricia would try to erase you. She said your father would let her. I set down my cup. What else did she say? Aunt Margaret was quiet for a moment. She looked at her hands. Your mother did something, she said. Before she got sick, she didn't tell me the details. She said it was a secret. She said I would know when the time was right. What kind of secret? I don't know. But she said you would understand when you found it. Found what? Aunt Margaret shook her head. I don't know. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you more. I sat in the kitchen, the rain falling outside, my daughter laughing in the next room, and I wondered what my mother had left behind. Something Patricia didn't know about. Something my father didn't know about. Something that had been waiting for 22 years. The weeks after the funeral were strange. I went back to work. I was a paralegal at a small law firm in Stamford. I processed documents and filed briefs and answered phones. It was not glamorous, but it paid the bills. Patricia sold my father's house within a month. I saw the listing online, $14 million. The photos showed rooms I had never been allowed to enter, the master suite, the wine cellar, the pool house. She sold the lake house too, and the apartment in the city, and the cars. She was liquidating everything, turning my father's life into cash. Brandon and Kyle were running the business now, or trying to. I heard through the grapevine that they were in over their heads, that they didn't know what they were doing, that projects were falling behind, that clients were leaving. I didn't care. I had my own problems. I started going through my mother's things. They were in boxes in Aunt Margaret's basement. My mother had died when I was 12. I hadn't looked at her belongings in years. It was too painful. But now, I felt something pulling me toward them, something I couldn't name. The boxes were labeled in my mother's handwriting. Megan clothes, Megan books, Megan photos. Important, do not discard. I opened the last one first. Inside were legal documents. Old ones, yellowed with age. A birth certificate, my birth certificate, a marriage certificate, my parents' marriage certificate, a deed for a house I had never seen, and a framed photograph of my mother holding me as a baby. I had looked at this photo of my mother 1,000 times, but I never noticed the small, raised edge on the back of the frame. Tucked inside wasn't just a letter. It was a map to a life my father tried to deny me. My fingers found the edge. I pulled gently. The back of the frame came loose. Inside, folded into a small square, was a piece of paper, not a letter, a document. A trust agreement. I pulled out the trust agreement. It was dated the year I was born. 24 pages, legalese. I couldn't understand most of it, but I understood the first page. The Megan Elizabeth Mercer Irrevocable Trust. Grantor, Eleanor Margaret Mercer, my mother. My mother had created a trust, in my name, the year I was born, hidden inside a photograph. Hidden in plain sight, I read further. Beneficiary, Megan Elizabeth Mercer. Trustee, the First National Bank of Connecticut. Assets, approximately $8 million to be held in trust until the beneficiary reaches the age of 35, at which point the trust shall be distributed in full to the beneficiary. $8 million. My mother had left me $8 million, and no one had told me. I sat on the basement floor, surrounded by boxes, holding a document that was older than my memories of my mother. My hands were shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. But I knew why. I wasn't 35 yet. I was 34. The trust wasn't supposed to be distributed until next year. But my mother had created it. She had set aside money for me. Money my father didn't control. Money Patricia couldn't touch. I read the document again and again and again. Then I called the bank. "If you could send one message to someone you've lost, what would you say?" "Put it in the comments. I'll read every single one. An hour and a half." That's how long it takes to drive from the house where I wasn't wanted to the bank where my mother had been waiting for 22 years. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. What if the trust was empty? What if Patricia had already found it? What if my mother's last gift had already been stolen? I pulled into the parking lot, turned off the engine, and sat there for 5 minutes. Then I walked inside. The First National Bank of Connecticut was in Hartford. I walked to the trust department on the 3rd floor. A woman named Susan was expecting me. She was in her 50s with gray hair and kind eyes and the calm demeanor of someone who had seen everything. "Ms. Mercer," she said, "I've been waiting for you." "You have? Your mother came to see me before she died. She said you would come someday. She said to be patient." I sat down. "What did she say?" Susan opened a file. "She created this trust when you were born. She funded it with money she inherited from her own mother. Your father didn't know about it. She didn't want him to know. Why not?" "Because she knew what would happen after she was gone. She knew your father would remarry. She knew your stepmother would try to take everything. She wanted to make sure you had something that no one could take away." I felt tears forming. She knew, Susan said. "She was a very smart woman. The trust says I get the money when I turn 35. That's next year." "Yes, but I need it now." "My daughter," Susan held up her hand. "There's something else." Your mother added a provision, an early distribution clause. Under certain circumstances, financial hardship, medical emergency, legal threats, the trustee has discretion to release funds before the beneficiary's 35th birthday. I reviewed your situation, your father's will, your stepmother's actions. I believe you qualify. How much? The full amount, $8 million. It can be in your account by the end of the week. I walked out of the bank in a daze. $8 million. Money my mother had hidden. Money my father never knew about. Money Patricia couldn't touch. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the dashboard. My mother had been gone for 22 years, but she was still protecting me. She had seen what would happen. She had planned for it. And she had left me a secret that would change everything. I thought about the last thing she said to me. "Don't let them erase you." She had made sure they couldn't. The next morning I called a lawyer. Not Gerald Crane. I would never trust him. A woman named Margaret Okonkwo who specialized in estate litigation. She was recommended by a friend from work. I told her everything. The will. The trust. My mother's secret. Patricia's attempt to erase me. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Your mother was very smart," she said. "Everyone keeps saying that, because it's true. This trust is ironclad. Your stepmother can't touch it. Your father couldn't touch it. It's yours." "There's more," I said. "What?" "I have reason to believe that Patricia has been trying to access the trust. She didn't know about it, but she might have found out." Margaret leaned forward. "Tell me." "Brandon and Kyle have been going through my father's old files. I heard from a former employee. They've been looking for something. I don't know what." Margaret nodded slowly. "If they found out about the trust, they might try to contest it. They might try to claim that your mother wasn't in her right mind when she created it. She was. She was healthy then. She hadn't gotten sick yet. Do you have documentation?" "I have the original trust agreement. I have bank records. I have letters she wrote to the trustee." Margaret smiled. "Then we have a case. A case for what?" "A case to protect what's yours." 2 weeks later, I received a letter from Gerald Crane. He was representing Patricia now, though I suspected he had always been representing her. The letter was formal, carefully worded, designed to intimidate. Dear Ms. Mercer, it has come to our attention that you have made claims regarding a trust established by your late mother, Eleanor Mercer. Our client, Patricia Mercer, disputes the validity of this trust and intends to challenge it in probate court. We request that you provide all documentation related to this trust within 14 days, or we will be forced to take legal action. Sincerely, Gerald Crane-esque. I read the letter twice. Then I called Margaret. She's challenging the trust, I said. I expected that. What do? We fight. We have the documentation. We have the bank records. We have the truth. Will we win? Margaret was quiet for a moment. Your mother created this trust when she was healthy, of sound mind, and under no duress. She funded it with her own money. Money she inherited from her mother. Your father had no claim to it. Your stepmother has even less. That's not a yes. It's as close to a yes as I can give you. But Megan, there's something you should know. What? Patricia isn't just challenging the trust. She's claiming that your mother's signature is a forgery. She's claiming that you created the trust yourself after your mother died. That's insane. Maybe. But it's what she's going to argue. We need to be prepared. The next few months were consumed by legal proceedings. Depositions, document requests, motions, hearings. I spent more time at Margaret's office than I did at work. I spent more time on the phone with her than I did with my daughter. One night, I came home at midnight after a 12-hour deposition. Chloe was supposed to be asleep. She wasn't. She was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the door. You're late again, she said, not angry, just tired. I sat down next to her. I know, baby. I'm sorry. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Is Grandma's money worth it? I didn't know how to answer, so I just held her. The hearing was scheduled for March. Margaret and I spent weeks preparing. We gathered evidence. We deposed witnesses. We built a case that was as close to airtight as anything could be. Patricia's lawyers argued that my mother had been mentally unstable. They argued that she had been manipulated by her family. They argued that the trust was invalid. Margaret countered with medical records, with bank statements, with letters my mother had written to the trustee, in her own handwriting, confirming her intentions. The day of the hearing, I sat in the courtroom, watching Patricia on the other side of the aisle. She was dressed in black, her hair perfectly coiffed, her expression carefully neutral. Brandon and Kyle sat behind her. They looked nervous. They should have been nervous. Gerald Crane gave his opening statement. He was polished, confident, dismissive. Your Honor, this is a case of fraud. Eleanor Mercer was not competent to create a trust in the months before her death. She was suffering from cancer, from depression, from the effects of chemotherapy. The trust she allegedly created is a fabrication, created after her death by her daughter, Megan Mercer, who saw an opportunity to enrich herself at her family's expense. He sat down. Margaret stood up. She was slower, older, but her voice was steady. Your Honor, Eleanor Mercer created this trust when she was healthy, of sound mind, and fully aware of what she was doing. She funded it with money she inherited from her own mother, money that was never part of her husband's estate. The trust was reviewed by independent counsel, notarized, and filed with the bank. The suggestion that it is a fabrication is not just false, it's desperate. She held up a document. We have letters from Eleanor Mercer to the trustee, written over a period of 5 years, confirming her intentions, reaffirming her wishes. This trust was not a mistake. It was a plan to protect her daughter from the very situation we are in today. My mother's letters were read aloud in court. They were beautiful, heartbreaking, full of love. Dear Susan, I'm writing to confirm my wishes regarding Megan's trust. I know I won't be around to see her grow up. I know Richard will remarry. I know his new wife will try to erase my daughter. Please don't let them. This money is for Megan. Only Megan, no one else. I trust you to protect it. With gratitude, Eleanor Mercer. Another letter. Dear Susan, I'm sick now, really sick. The doctors say I have months, not years. I think about Megan every day. I worry about her. I worry that she will feel alone after I'm gone. Please tell her when the time is right that I never stopped loving her, that I never stopped fighting for her. This trust is my fight. It's all I have left to give. Thank you for being part of it, Eleanor. The courtroom was silent when the letters were finished. Even Patricia had stopped pretending to be composed. Her face was pale. Judge Holloway, the same judge who had presided over countless family disputes, looked at Gerald Crane. Mr. Crane, does your client wish to continue? Crane leaned toward Patricia. They spoke in whispers. Patricia shook her head. Crane leaned back. No, Your Honor, we withdraw the challenge. Judge Holloway nodded. The court finds in favor of the respondent, Megan Mercer. The trust established by Eleanor Mercer is confirmed as valid and binding. She looked at Patricia. Her eyes were cold. This court does not look kindly on those who use forgery as a weapon when they've simply been outplayed by a smarter woman. Before we adjourn, there is one additional matter. The The court has reviewed Mrs. Mercer's claim that Eleanor Mercer's signature was a forgery. That claim was not just false. It was made in bad faith. Mrs. Mercer, you are hereby ordered to pay Ms. Mercer's legal fees, totaling $47,000, within 30 days. Failure to do so will result in contempt proceedings. Patricia's face went gray. Brandon grabbed her arm. Kyle stared at the floor. I watched them. I didn't feel sorry for them. I didn't feel anything at all. The judge picked up her pen. This hearing is adjourned. After the hearing, I caught Patricia in the hallway. She tried to walk past me. I stopped her. Patricia. She turned. Her face was pale. Her composure was gone. You spent 22 years telling my father I didn't need anything, I said. You were right. I didn't need his money. I had my mother's. She opened her mouth, closed it. The difference between us, I said, is that my mother actually loved me. Yours just taught you how to marry rich men. I walked away. I didn't look back. The money was in my account within a week. $8 million. More money than I had ever imagined. More money than my father had left anyone. More than Patricia had received. More than Brandon and Kyle would ever see. I didn't spend it on luxuries. I didn't buy a mansion or a sports car or a vacation home. I paid off my debts. I put money aside for Chloe's education. I bought a small house, not a mansion, just a house, with a yard and a garden and room for Chloe to play. I quit my job at the law firm. I didn't need it anymore. But I didn't want to do nothing either. I started a small foundation in my mother's name to help other single mothers who were struggling the way I had struggled. Margaret helped me set it up. She said it was the kind of thing Eleanor would have loved. Patricia didn't disappear quietly. She tried to sue me for what? I don't know. Harassment? Emotional distress? The lawsuits were dismissed. She tried to get the media involved, to paint me as a greedy daughter stealing from her grieving stepmother. No one bit. Brandon and Kyle ran the business into the ground within 18 months. It wasn't hard. They didn't know what they were doing. They had never had to work for anything in their lives. The company filed for bankruptcy. The assets were sold. The employees were laid off. I heard through the grapevine that Patricia had moved to Florida, that she was living in a condo, not a mansion, that she was alone. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel anything at all. Chloe is 11 now. She's in 5th grade. She loves art and science and reading books about dragons. She doesn't know about the trust, not the details. She knows that her grandmother left us money. She knows that we're safe. That's enough. Sometimes she asks about my father. About Patricia, about the family I came from. Why don't we see them? She asked once. Because they didn't treat us well, baby. What does that mean? It means they didn't love us the way we deserve to be loved. She thought about that for a moment. That's sad for them, she said. Maybe I'm not sad. I have you. I hugged her. She hugged me back. That's right, baby. You have me. I still have my mother's letters. They're in a box in my closet, wrapped in tissue paper, tied with a ribbon. I take them out sometimes on hard days and read them. I never stopped fighting for you. She didn't. Even when she was gone, she was fighting. I think about her every day, not with sadness anymore. With gratitude, she saw what would happen. She knew my father would fail me. She knew Patricia would try to erase me, and she did something about it. She created a secret, a trust, a promise, and 22 years later it saved me. The judge said the trust was valid. Patricia had to pay my legal fees. But here's what I keep thinking. Was this justice, or was this just luck that my mother was smarter than my father? Tell me in the comments, what would you have done with the money? My father left me nothing, but my mother left me everything. Not just the money, the knowledge that someone saw me, someone loved me, someone fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. That's the inheritance that matters. The money is gone now. Not gone, but spent, invested, given away. The house is paid for. Chloe's college fund is full. The foundation is helping other mothers who were once where I was. But the love is still here. It was here before the money. It will be here after. That's what my mother gave me. Not a trust. A life. I don't think about Patricia anymore. I don't think about my father. I think about Chloe, about the sound of her laugh, about the way she looks when she's concentrating on a drawing, about the woman she's going to become. I think about my mother, about the last thing she said to me. Don't let them erase you. I won't, Mama. I won't. Here's what I learned. For 34 years, I believed my father when he said I was too independent to need help. I believed that asking for anything was a sign of weakness. I believed that my value was measured by how little I required from other people. I was wrong. Strength isn't about not needing. It's about knowing what you deserve and not apologizing for it. My father gave everything to Patricia because she asked. He gave me nothing because I didn't, but I didn't ask because I learned that asking was pointless, not because I didn't need. My mother saw that. She saw it before I was old enough to understand, and she did something about it. She didn't just leave me money, she left me a lesson. The people who love you don't need you to be independent. They just need you to be you. My father chose Patricia over me. He chose what was easy over what was right. He chose his own comfort over his daughter's worth. But my mother chose me, one last time. And that was enough. If you've ever been the child who was too independent to deserve help, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.